In the heart of an ancient, mist-cloaked valley, nestled between towering mountains and rivers that shimmered like liquid silver, there lay the city of Exodia. Known far and wide as the City of Spells, Exodia was unlike any other metropolis. Here, magic did not simply exist, it ruled. The city was divided into 5 distinct districts, each governed by its own magic guild. These guilds wielded enormous power, not only over the magical arts but also over the city's politics, commerce, and culture. Their influence was so great that the city council itself bowed to their will, ensuring that the guilds were both revered and feared. 1. The Guild of Arcanum Luminis, Masters of Light and Illusion. The Guild of Arcanum Luminis was famed for its mastery over light, illusion, and the mind. Located in the northern quarter of Exodia, their citadel stood like a beacon, glowing at all times of day and night. A magnificent structure of white marble, it was said to be enchanted so that the very walls shimmered like a mirage. The guild members were experts at manipulating light and shadow to create dazzling illusions, whether to dazzle audiences, deceive foes, or confuse enemies. Their primary focus was on the blending of reality and fantasy, weaving intricate spells that could mask entire armies, summon visions of otherworldly realms, or plunge enemies into disorienting darkness. Guild leader, Lady Seraphina Glimmerveil. Lady Seraphina was a tall, graceful woman whose beauty was matched only by her mastery of illusion. Her long silver hair flowed like moonlight, and her eyes gleamed with a mesmerizing light that could sway the wills of others with a glance. She was a tactician, preferring to avoid direct combat, using misdirection and mental manipulation to achieve her goals. She was also a fierce guardian of secrets, hiding much of the guild's true capabilities behind veils of illusion and intrigue. Her symbol was the Veil of Starlight, a flowing cape made from strands of pure light that shimmered and shifted with the motions of her magic. 2. The Iron Root Covenant, Guardians of Earth and Nature. In the verdant southern district, the Iron Root Covenant thrived amidst the towering forests and lush gardens that surrounded their stone fortress, Ironbark Keep. The guild was devoted to the magic of the earth, plants, and beasts. They were known for their connection to nature, controlling the forces of growth, decay, and the very bones of the world itself. Members of the Covenant could shape the landscape, summon massive stone golems, command the wildlife, and accelerate plant growth to create living fortifications. They believed in the balance of nature, and any threat to the natural order was swiftly dealt with by their formidable druids and geomancers. Guild leader, Thorn Wildmantle. Thorn was a towering figure, his skin etched with bark-like markings that signified his deep connection to the natural world. His beard was thick and tangled with vines and moss, and his eyes glowed with the emerald light of the forest. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was deep and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. Thorn was a warrior druid, capable of becoming as one with the earth itself, transforming into a massive living tree or commanding the land to rise at his call. His symbol was the heart of the forest, a wooden amulet said to contain the essence of the oldest tree in the world, granting him immense control over nature's forces. 3. The Pyros Indicate, Flames of Destruction and Creation. To the east, where the ground was scorched black from ancient battles, stood the towering spires of Ember Watch Tower, home to the Pyros Indicate. Known for their mastery over fire, the guild believed in the duality of flame, its power to destroy and its power to create. The Pyros Indicate was both feared and respected, for their flames could incinerate entire armies, but they could also forge weapons of unparalleled strength and beauty. The guild members specialized in the manipulation of heat, fire, and molten elements. They were capable of summoning walls of flame, creating weapons from pure heat, and even bending the very essence of a volcano to their will. Guild leader, Kyle Firesoul. Kyle was a figure of both charisma and danger. His hair was the color of molten gold, always seeming to smolder at the tips, and his eyes burned with an intensity that could make even the bravest of men tremble. His mastery of flame was unmatched, and he was said to have been born from the embers of a dying star. Kyle was known for his fiery temper, but also for his brilliance in crafting enchanted weapons of fire and steel. Under his leadership, the Pyro Syndicate grew into a force feared even by the other guilds. His symbol was the crown of cinders, a circlet of ever-burning embers that never extinguished, marking him as the true master of fire. For the Tempest Spire, lords of the sky and storm. In the western district of Exodia, where the winds howled and thunderclouds gathered, stood the Tempest Spire, a towering edifice that seemed to touch the very heavens. This guild wielded power over the winds, storms, and the vast skies above. They were masters of air and electricity, able to summon violent storms, hurl lightning bolts, and manipulate the weather itself. The Tempest Spire was often called upon in times of war, for their ability to command the skies gave them dominion over the battlefield. They also served as protectors of the city, ensuring that no hostile force could approach Exodia from the skies. Guild leader, Aurelia Stormsong. Aurelia was a slender, fierce woman with hair like a tempest, wild and white, always shifting as if caught in an invisible wind. Her eyes crackled with lightning, and her voice could command the storm itself. She was a warrior at heart, often found flying at the front of her storm riders, wielding twin blades that sparked with electricity. Aurelia's command over the skies was legendary, and it was said that when she was angered, the heavens themselves would tremble. Her symbol was the Spear of Thunder, a weapon forged from a single bolt of lightning, which she wielded to summon devastating storms. 5. The Umbral Veil, Masters of Shadows and Death. To the farthest corners of Exodia, in the shadowy alleys and beneath the streets, lay the headquarters of the Umbral Veil. This guild was secretive and feared, for they dealt in the magic of shadows, death, and the unknown. The Umbral Veil specialized in necromancy, shadow manipulation, and the art of subterfuge. They were the silent enforcers of the city's darker dealings, and their influence stretched far beyond Exodia's walls. Their citadel, Shadefall, was hidden beneath the city, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers filled with ancient bones and dark magic. It was said that to enter Shadefall uninvited was to never return. Guild leader, Moros Nightshade. Moros was a figure of mystery, always cloaked in shadows, with eyes as dark as the abyss. His face was rarely seen, but his presence was always felt. It was whispered that Moros had lived for centuries, sustained by dark rituals and forbidden magic. His mastery over death was unparalleled, able to summon entire legions of the dead to do his bidding. Despite his grim appearance, Moros was a pragmatic leader, ensuring that the Umbral Veil's actions were precise and calculated, never reckless. His symbol was the Cloak of Dusk, a garment woven from the shadows of the underworld itself, which granted him the power to move between realms of life and death. In Exodia, the balance of power was tenuous, and the alliances between the guilds were ever shifting. Though united in their desire to see the city thrive, they were often at odds, each seeking to extend its influence over the others. Beneath the surface of this magical metropolis, ancient rivalries simmered, and the future of the city hung in the balance, shaped by the hands of these mighty guilds and their enigmatic leaders. The dawn light shimmered on the horizon as a young girl named Lyra approached the gates of Exodia. Her travel-worn cloak fluttered behind her, and her bright eyes gleamed with curiosity and wonder. Lyra had heard tales of Exodia all her life, the city of spells, where magic ruled and the 5 great guilds shaped the world. She had come from a small, unremarkable village, her heart full of dreams and a yearning for adventure. She had no great purpose for visiting Exodia. No family waiting for her, no master to teach her the magical arts. She was simply a traveler, a seeker of knowledge, and a lover of stories. Little did she know, her journey through the city's guilds would become the greatest story of her life. The illusions of Arcanum Luminis. Lyra's first stop was the shimmering northern quarter, where the towering citadel of Arcanum Luminis glistened like a mirage. As she approached, the walls seemed to bend and shift, their shape never quite solid. When Lyra stepped inside, the world changed. The interior was a labyrinth of mirrors, reflective surfaces distorting her surroundings. She saw herself, then 10 versions of herself, then none at all. The floor beneath her feet turned into a field of stars, and she felt like she was floating through the cosmos. A voice whispered from all directions, "Welcome, traveler. What do you seek?" Lyra turned, but no one was there. She could feel the magic in the air, thick like a veil around her. "I seek to understand the world beyond my own," she answered, her voice trembling with awe. Suddenly, the mirrors shifted, and a figure appeared, Lady Seraphina Glimmerveil herself. She was taller than Lyra had imagined, with silver hair that shimmered like moonlight and eyes that seemed to peer directly into Lyra's soul. "You wander through illusions," Child Seraphina said softly. "But what is real, and what is not? The world is a mirror. Sometimes what you see is only what you wish to see." Seraphina raised her hand, and the mirrors bent and shifted, revealing Lyra standing in a small room, far less grand than the illusions had made it appear. Yet the magic of the moment lingered. "What do you wish to learn?" Seraphina asked. "I want to see the truth," Lyra said, now realizing that the illusions had been part of her trial. Seraphina smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "Truth is an illusion, too. But you have a curious heart, and that will serve you well. Remember, not everything that shines is gold." With a wave of her hand, Seraphina disappeared, and Lyra found herself at the entrance once more, the citadel shimmering behind her. The wild magic of Ironroot Covenant. The scent of pine and moss filled the air as Lyra made her way south toward Ironbark Keep. The forest grew thicker the closer she got, until the trees towered above her like giants. When she finally reached the gates, they were not iron or stone but living wood, twisted and intertwined. As Lyra entered, the forest seemed alive. Vines moved like serpents, and flowers bloomed at her feet. The ground beneath her shifted as if the earth itself recognized her presence. A massive figure loomed ahead, standing among the trees like one of their own, Thorn Wildmantle, the guild leader. His skin was rough like bark, and his deep-set eyes glowed with an emerald light. "Who walks among the trees?" Thorn's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am Lyra, a traveler," she said, feeling small in his presence. "I seek to learn the ways of your guild." Thorn nodded, his eyes narrowing in thought. He gestured for her to follow, and as they walked deeper into the forest, the world around them seemed to change. The trees whispered secrets, and the ground pulsed with life. Suddenly, they stopped at a clearing where a massive, ancient tree stood. Thorn placed his hand on its bark, and it creaked as if alive. "Nature is both creation and destruction. Life and death. You wish to understand it?" Lyra nodded eagerly. "Then prove your respect for the balance." Thorn gestured to the tree, and from its bark, a massive golem of wood and stone emerged. It towered over Lyra, its eyes glowing with ancient energy. Lyra's heart raced. She had no weapons, no magic to defend herself. But Thorn remained silent, watching. Instead of fleeing, Lyra knelt before the golem, bowing her head. "I do not come to destroy. I come to learn," she said softly. The golem paused, its glowing eyes flickering, and then it stepped back, merging once again with the tree. Thorn nodded approvingly. "You understand," he said. "Respect the balance, and the earth will never harm you." With that, he gifted her a small seed, enchanted with the magic of the forest. "Plant this wherever you go. It will remind you of the balance you've seen here." The flames of the pyros indicate. The heat was palpable as Lyra entered the eastern quarter of Exodia. Ember Watchtower rose before her, its dark spires trailing smoke into the sky. The very air around her seemed to sizzle, and she could hear the crackle of fire even from outside the gates. Kyle Firesoul met her at the entrance. His presence was intense, like standing too close to the sun. His molten gold hair shimmered in the light, and his eyes blazed with a fierce, unyielding power. "You come to the Pyros Indicate," Kyle said, his voice low and smoldering. "Do you seek power, girl? Or are you just here to get burned?" Lyra swallowed her fear but stood her ground. "I seek to understand the flame. I know it destroys, but I also know it creates." Kyle's eyes gleamed with approval, though his expression remained stern. "Then let's see how well you handle both." He led her to a forge where a block of iron sat, dull and lifeless. "This is your test," Kyle said. "Shape it with fire. Show me that you understand the balance of creation and destruction." Lyra had never worked with fire before, but she watched Kyle closely as he summoned a blaze, its flames licking the air like serpents. He handed her a pair of tongs and nodded toward the forge. Tentatively, she reached out, grabbing the iron and placing it in the fire. The heat was overwhelming, and sweat dripped down her brow, but she kept her focus. Slowly, as the metal glowed red-hot, she began to shape it, her hands trembling but steady. Finally, after what felt like hours, she pulled the iron from the flames. It had transformed into a simple yet elegant dagger, its blade glowing faintly from the heat. Kyle took the dagger, examining it closely. Then, with a grin, he handed it back to her. "Not bad. You've got the heart of a flame." As she left Ember Watchtower, the dagger felt warm in her hand, a reminder of the power she had learned to wield. The storms of the Tempest Spire. The winds howled as Lyra approached the western quarter, where the Tempest Spire loomed like a jagged spear against the sky. Lightning flashed overhead, and the air crackled with energy. Aurelia Storm Song descended from the skies to meet her, her white hair whipping in the wind. Her presence was fierce, like the storm itself. "You've come to ride the storm," Aurelia said, her voice a booming thunderclap. "But can you stand against it?" Before Lyra could answer, Aurelia summoned a bolt of lightning that struck the ground beside her. The energy surged through the air, making Lyra's hair stand on end. "Survive the storm," Aurelia commanded, "and you'll learn its secrets." The winds rose, and Lyra was swept into a whirlwind of air and lightning. She could feel the power of the storm pressing against her, trying to tear her apart, but she stayed on her feet, determined not to be swept away. In the eye of the storm, Aurelia's voice echoed. "Control it, or it will control you." Closing her eyes, Lyra focused, reaching out with her mind to the swirling winds. Slowly, she began to feel the rhythm of the storm, its wild energy pulsing through her veins. She raised her arms, and to her surprise, the winds obeyed. The storm calmed, and Aurelia landed beside her, a proud smile on her face. "Well done, girl. You've learned to ride the storm. The shadows of the umbral veil. The last guild was the most mysterious. Lyra descended into the dark alleys and hidden corners of Exodia, where the umbral veil lurked in the shadows. She had no idea where to find their headquarters, but somehow, she knew they were already watching her. A figure appeared from the darkness, Moro's nightshade, cloaked in shadows so thick it was impossible to see his face. "You wish to walk among shadows?" he asked, his voice a whisper that sent chills down Lyra's spine. Lyra nodded, her heart pounding. "I want to understand the darkness." Moros gestured for her to follow, leading her deeper into the labyrinth of shadows. Eventually, they reached a chamber where the walls were lined with bones, and the air was thick with the scent of death. "This is the place where the living meet the dead," Moros said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Do you fear it?" "I do," Lyra admitted. "But I want to learn." Moros nodded. "The dead are nothing to fear. They are part of the world, as we are. But to control them, that takes more than bravery." He handed her a small, bone-carved amulet. "This will allow you to speak with the dead. But be warned, they do not always speak kindly." Lyra clutched the amulet, her hands trembling, but she summoned her courage and put it on. Instantly, the shadows around her seemed to whisper, voices from beyond the grave filling her ears. She shuddered but remained standing, her resolve unwavering. Moros watched her for a long moment before speaking. "You are stronger than most who come here. But remember, darkness is not your enemy. It is simply a part of the world you must understand." As Lyra left the umbral veil, her heart was full. She had visited each of Exodia's great guilds, and with every encounter, she had learned something new, not just about magic, but about herself. The city had changed her, shaped her in ways she could barely understand. But one thing was clear, Lyra was no longer just a traveler. She had become a part of the City of Spells, and its magic had become a part of her. The cobblestone streets of Exodia hummed with an ancient, magical energy as Lyra wandered through its labyrinthine passages once more. It had been several months since her first visit, and the city seemed both familiar and foreign. The towers of the guilds loomed in the distance, and Lyra's heart swelled with anticipation. This time, she wasn't here just to marvel at the magic of the guilds, she was here to uncover their secrets. There were whispers in the markets, murmurs in the taverns, the guilds were hiding something. Each was entwined in a web of mysteries that had shaped the city for centuries. Lyra's curiosity, as always, was insatiable. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. The lost mirror of Arcanum Luminis. Lyra's first stop was Arcanum Luminis. The citadel's shimmering walls still dazzled, but this time, Lyra's focus was sharper. She was no longer dazzled by the illusions, she was searching for what lay behind them. When she met Lady Srafina Glimmerveil in her chamber, Lyra immediately sensed that the guild leader was hiding something. "You've returned," Srafina said, her voice as smooth and melodic as before. "What do you seek this time, Lyra?" Lyra met Srafina's piercing gaze. "I seek to learn about the lost mirror." The room fell silent. Srafina's serene expression faltered for the briefest moment. "The lost mirror," she repeated, her tone cautious. "That's an old legend. A story." Lyra shook her head. "No, it's more than that. I've heard whispers that it's real, a mirror capable of showing not just illusions, but the truth hidden within them. The truth even the wielder may not want to see." Srafina stood, her silver hair flowing like liquid light, and walked to a window that overlooked the city. "The lost mirror," she said softly, was once a powerful artifact housed here, in the deepest vaults of Arcanum Luminis. It could show not just illusions, but the most painful realities, truths that could drive someone mad. Lyra's pulse quickened. Where is it now? Lost, Srafina whispered, her voice a mix of sorrow and resolve. Centuries ago, it was stolen by one of our own, an illusionist who wished to see something she could not bear. She vanished into the mists with the mirror, never to be seen again. Srafina turned to Lyra, her eyes now darker, as if veils of light had been drawn back. The mirror reveals the truth, yes. But it is a cursed truth. Those who seek it rarely survive the encounter. Lyra felt a chill crawl up her spine, but her resolve hardened. The lost mirror was real, and it was out there somewhere, waiting to reveal its forbidden secrets. The Eternal Oak of Ironroot Covenant. Next, Lyra ventured south to Ironbark Keep, where Thorn Wildmantle greeted her in his usual stoic manner. The deep emerald glow in his eyes spoke of centuries of wisdom, but Lyra sensed that the forest held secrets even Thorn would not speak of freely. I've heard of a tree, Lyra began, walking beside him through the great forest. An eternal oak, older than the forest itself. Is it true? Thorn's steps slowed, and the towering figure of the druid seemed even larger under the canopy of the trees. His voice was a rumble of caution. The eternal oak is not a tree, girl. It is life itself. Lyra looked up at the towering trees around her, their trunks thick with ancient power. Tell me about it. Thorn sighed, his voice like the groaning of an ancient wood. The eternal oak is the heart of our guild, a tree that lies at the center of the forest, hidden from all but a few. Its roots stretch far, entwined with the very essence of the world. It is said that the oak was planted by the first druid, an immortal being who sought to preserve the balance of life and death. Lyra felt the weight of his words, but she sensed more was hidden beneath them. But it's not just a tree, is it? Thorn stopped and turned to her, his green eyes narrowing. No, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It is a doorway. A doorway to another realm, one where the balance of life and death no longer holds sway. To go near the eternal oak is to risk losing yourself in a place where the very laws of nature unravel. Has anyone ever returned? Lyra asked, her heart pounding. Thorn's silence was answer enough. The embert of the Pyros Indicate. The blistering heat of the Eastern District welcomed Lyra as she approached Ember Watchtower. The air shimmered with heat, but her curiosity burned hotter. She had heard of a mysterious relic hidden within the heart of the Pyros Indicate, something called the embert. Kyle Firesoul, ever charismatic and intense, met her at the gates. Back again, are you? What fires are you hoping to stoke this time? I've heard of the embert, Lyra said boldly. What is it? Kyle's smile faltered, and for the first time, Lyra saw a flicker of something other than bravado in his eyes. The embert, he said slowly, is not something to be trifled with. He led her to a chamber deep within the tower, where the heat became almost unbearable. At the center of the room, encased in a sphere of flame, was a glowing red stone. It pulsed like a living heart, radiating an overwhelming power. The embert is the core of a dead star, Kyle explained, his voice uncharacteristically reverent. It is a fragment of creation itself, a force of pure, unbridled energy. The fire of the gods. Lyra stared at the stone, mesmerized by its pulsating glow. Why is it hidden away? Kyle's eyes darkened. Because it consumes. The last guild leader who tried to wield it, was devoured by it. The power of the embert is too great for any mortal to control. But it is also our greatest secret, a power that could reshape the world if anyone were to unlock its true potential. Lyra stepped back, her skin tingling from the heat, and realized that some mysteries were better left untouched. The whispers of Tempest Spire. The winds of the Western District howled as Lyra made her way to the Tempest Spire. The air crackled with electricity, and thunder rumbled ominously in the distance. As Lyra entered the spire, she felt as if the very sky was watching her. Aurelia Stormsong greeted her at the top of the tower, her white hair whipping in the wind. "What brings you here, traveler? Do you wish to learn more of the storm?" "I've heard of something called the Windstone," Lyra said, her voice raised to be heard over the howling wind. "What is it?" Aurelia's expression changed, her fierce confidence shifted into something more guarded. "The Windstone is a relic of the storm gods," she said carefully. "A gem that holds the very essence of the sky itself." "Where is it?" Lyra pressed. Aurelia hesitated before leading her to the highest chamber of the spire. Inside, a glowing blue stone hovered in midair, swirling with winds and crackling with electricity. The air around it shimmered with power. "The Windstone," Aurelia said, her voice almost reverent, "was a gift from the gods of the sky to the first storm wielders. It allows one to command the skies, summon hurricanes, part clouds, control the very breath of the world." Lyra gazed at the stone, feeling the immense power radiating from it. "Why not use it?" Aurelia shook her head. "Because the Windstone is cursed. Anyone who tries to wield its full power risks losing their soul to the storm. The skies demand balance, and those who break that balance pay the ultimate price." Lyra felt the storm swirling around her, a force too wild and dangerous to be tamed. "Then why keep it?" Aurelia's eyes met hers. "Because one day, it may be the only thing that can save us." The Veil of Shadows. The alleys of Exodia's shadowy corners had always been unsettling, but this time, Lyra walked them with a purpose. The umbral veil had always been shrouded in mystery, but now, she sought to pierce the darkness and uncover its secrets. Moro's nightshade appeared from the shadows, his presence as silent and menacing as ever. "You return to walk the shadows again," he murmured. "What is it you seek, girl?" "I want to know about the Black Scroll," Lyra said, her voice unwavering despite the fear prickling at the back of her neck. "The scroll that's said to hold the knowledge of death itself." Moros was silent for a long moment, his face hidden in the shadows of his hood. "The Black Scroll is not a thing to be spoken of lightly," he said finally. "It is the culmination of all the umbral veil's forbidden knowledge, secrets of life, death, and the spaces in between." He led her deep into the underground chambers of Shadefall, where the walls seemed to pulse with a dark, living energy. At the heart of the guild's sanctum was a small, unassuming scroll, bound in black leather. "The Black Scroll contains the rights to speak with the dead, to control them, and even to bring them back," Moros said. "But it comes at a terrible cost. The price of such power is the very soul of the one who wields it." Lyra stared at the scroll, feeling a pull toward it, as if it called to her from the depths of the abyss. "Has anyone ever used it?" she asked. Moros's voice was barely a whisper. "Once. Long ago. The result was catastrophe. The dead are not meant to be controlled. The veil between life and death is fragile, and to tamper with it is to invite the destruction of both." As Lyra left the umbral veil, the weight of Exodia's secrets pressed down on her. She had uncovered the mysteries of each guild, the Lost Mirror, the Eternal Oak, the Ember Urt, the Windstone, and the Black Scroll. Each was a relic of immense power, but each was bound by ancient curses, deadly consequences, and terrible responsibility. The city of Exodia was a place of wonder, but it was also a city of dangerous secrets. And as Lyra walked its streets once more, she realized that the knowledge she had gained came with a heavy burden. Some mysteries were never meant to be unraveled, but she had stepped into their web nonetheless. The question that now haunted her was simple: what would she do with the truth she had uncovered?